Jesus Christ, I got some funky shit going on with my hair. Who's here? Babe, I'm drinking the last of the coffee. Do you want some more? Who's here? Usually it's Phil. Phil seems to be usually the first. Oh, I didn't enable chat. Who all's here? Yakov. Morning. So yesterday, Matt and I went to the smoke shop because we had worked out a deal, and we picked out a brand new bong and tested it out last night. And in my accelerated thinking that I had last night, because I was high, I had an idea. Doesn't this remind you of Judge Dredd? Like the lines and all that looks like Judge Dredd. Like it looks like his helmet and all that shit. I'm thinking this knife needs to be a Judge Dredd-esque red, black, areas of just silver. I don't know, what do you guys think? I'm thinking. I think I could pull it off. Just the colors. Judge Dredd was one of my favorite cartoon characters. And I loved both the Dredd movies. Like, a lot of people don't like the Sylvester Stallone one. I love that one. And I liked the Carl Urban one as well. They were both great. And so I was looking at it and I was like, I just kept thinking, like something kept popping in my head. And I think it's the blade shape. Looks like his helmet as it comes down with his chin and everything. I don't know. It was just something that happened when I was high. And it was in my head and I was like, that thing would look great like that. Maybe polish all the hardware and just leave it polished titanium, which is, polished titanium looks great. Like my ring is polished, but then I took it to a really high voltage green where it's almost purple and green. Which you can see on the inside where I didn't polish this green. So you get this weird, the sides are green, but then the face is like cerulean. What do you guys think? My wife has to get ready for work in a couple minutes. She's gotta take a shower. No, same ring. It's the same ring, I cleaned it up and anodized it. It was blue before, and the other day while I was waiting on stuff to tumble, I just polished the shit out of it and re-anodized it. Oh, yeah, that one. This one, actually, the guys had these at the shop, and I found one that was, that didn't have the gap in it, and it actually fits my finger a little bit better than the other one's still in there. I still have it. That's the one that had the diamond in it that fell out. But so these came from TMS Titanium. I've been wearing this for a year or so after I found one, because they had these massive things, great big rings, huge rings, and they're like, I think we're just gonna throw them out. They don't fit anybody. And I was like, let me try one. And Elliot was like, are you fucking serious? Your hands are that fucking big? I was like, yeah. Phil knows. Phil's seen that I've, like, it's not an exaggeration when I say I have really, really big hands. They're not normal sized hands. So, yeah, I'm trying to find something for perspective. Oh, here you go. That's a Zippo lighter. That's a Zippo lighter next to my wedding ring. And it's not, they're thick too. They're just, like, that's all, my hands are just almost like, I shook hands with a guy one time. And he goes, Jesus Christ, dude, you don't spank a kid with those, do you? It's from turning wrenches in the Navy for years and years. You get weird, like that's just a big muscle right there. And so, it's, but now today, guys, I have work that I am gonna do, but I'm not starting till late. Yeah, my cousin one time, I took my ring off. We were on the same ship, and I had a ring that I was wearing. It wasn't a wedding ring. I wore it on this hand. And it was more like a class ring type thing. And it may have been my class ring. And I took it off and said, hey, can you hold this? And I was tying some line. I didn't want to get it caught. It's one of the cardinal rules in the Navy, because you always take your ring off when you're dealing with line. And Chad handed it to me. He's like, Jesus Christ, dude, you got those big pedophile fingers. And I was like, what? Yeah. Yeah. Like, that makes no sense. I did a sharpening on our friend Todd's father's knife that I did a two-tone on. Just a real quick one. It wasn't perfect or anything, but in a perfect scenario, this would have been blasted and tumbled. But this is just blasted, and then this is just a quick satin that I threw on. I did that when I was high as fuck on a Friday night. So, guys, I was gonna tell you, well, since it's just because it's sitting here, I cleaned this area up here, and it's really easy to see it. I am still selling this custom Moorish made. If anybody's interested, it was gonna go as a deal with the Frederick, but the guy decided he wanted the Frederick, but did not want this. And I was trying to package them together to give some added benefit, added bonus. But so he paid what I wanted for the Frederick, but I'm still selling this. And it's the stuff that I mentioned that was wrong with it, I have resolved and rectified. Lock stick issues taken care of, the deployment issue, I took it apart, I fixed it. So this is a Sam Moorish made, handmade Tonto with lightning strike carbon fiber. If any of you guys are interested in this knife, it's not a bad knife now that we've fixed some of the issues. The issues I had with it in the past were it didn't flip, it was really rough, and it had a ton of lock stick. Like you would have to stick something there and pop it. So I cleaned up the face of the I don't usually mess with the lock interface, but I just took a piece of 120 grit sandpaper and wrapped it around a block, and I cleaned off that lock interface, and then I recarbonized the lock face. I recarbonized it. It'll squeak if you're pushed down on it, but it does not. It doesn't have lock stick anymore. So once I rectified that, it's not a bad little knife. It's just too short for my hands. So if any of you guys are interested in a full custom folder, I've got one that I'm selling. So just reach out to me. My email's always in the bottom below. So, Jakob, I'm gonna keep an eye on that account so that I can let you know as soon as it pops. And then the email I tried to send to Wee late last night did not go through. I'm gonna try it again today, but like I said, today's another one of those days where this week was basically a week full of shit that I had to do. Monday was taxes. Tuesday was I had to get the phone fixed and run a couple errands. Then it was yesterday I got a bunch of sharpening done, but I didn't get everything done. And then so I had a couple packages show up to work on, and I was like, yeah, it's too late to start on it now. And so I was gonna do it today, but I forgot today. I gotta take Puppers in for her evaluation because she went on a new medicine and we have to see if it's working. So if not, they're gonna have to change the dosage. It's the same shit that Yakov was taking. Okay. So I haven't been able to say anything about the Malice. Nah, I'm probably not going to Blade. That Malice has been a prototype that's been sitting on the bench at Chris and Elliot's forever. Elliot designed it. It has been there since SHOT Show last year, I think. And so I got work stuff set up over here. So anyway, it was, no, it's not. I love that knife. It's really, really reminiscent of an Archbishop in blade shape and everything. It's just everything about it. The dimensions are a little bit wider and fill your hand a little bit more. And so it's a big beefy knife with a big, nice blade with a big belly, but it's not super thick. And so it's like taking an Archbishop and just blowing it up a little bit, like a balloon. And but it's so comfortable in hand, and the action on it is so good. And then it's got some clean, cool lines to it. Especially if you look, they've got one where it looks like it's laser anodized that they posted up on Instagram asking everybody which they liked better. So, yeah, I didn't like it when I first looked at it. I was like, I don't know, guys. Because they brought that prototype back from SHOT Show in Vegas last year. Not this year's SHOT Show. And they were like, and I was looking at it, and Elliot's like, I really like it. He's like, this is a design that I really wanted, but I didn't, he said he didn't think that they could make it work with their brand because it was so similar. And so they basically, that is a WE knife designed by Fair and Forge, a lot like my Hornet. That's their first outing into that. So they have their Pro line, which is their knives. These are the first ones that they've done that are going to be WE branded. Oh, and I have both of the prototypes back now. Matt dropped it off yesterday, but they're in a box out in a car, so. Any other questions? If you guys are still wanting to do this, I mean, if this gets old, this morning coffee, or the daily live feed, we'll stop doing it because there's 15 people here. I'm not going to stick around. Yop. Who else? Because like I said, if I'm not getting interaction, I just don't want to just talk to the thing by myself. So if I'm not getting interaction, I will stop. But anybody got any? I just want to break something. Pops out. I've had Bally's. Here's the thing, I've had Bally's. I just don't play with them. I play with mats a lot up at the shop. I was up there doing aerials. And our friend Brian with Y, Brian Wallace, Brian with a Y, Y-R-I-A-N. That's how I have it in my phone because he told me it was Brian with a Y. And I think it irritates him. I might change it because I keep going, Brian with a Y. At any rate, Brian has a trainer, and I'll do aerials with that. With the one that we have at the shop, I've flipped Bally's. I used to flip Bally's a lot. I had one when I was in. I had an actual, me and Matt talked about it. It's a 42 or something like that, whatever the expensive one is, that I had one, and I lost it. Got stolen, something like that. Got rid of it. I don't remember what happened to it. And come to find out now, even a beat up one is worth like fucking $400. I was like, God damn it. So I've had several Bally's, and I did learn to flip and things like that, but I cut myself real bad with one time, and I was like, I can't afford to get in trouble for this, because I was in the Navy at the time, and I just fucking slashed my finger wide open, and I was like, eh. But the whole thing is, I treated Bally's like every other knife, and I would sharpen them and get them sharp like I do mine, and I was like, I didn't realize until I was fucking around one time, I was like, ooh, fuck, that's a good one. And I had to get like, I think I had to get like 6 stitches in my finger. Yeah, lose a digit. I got a scar right here in the palm of my hand where I was sharpening a knife for a guy on the ship. I stabbed the knife in my hand real. I would like to see knives that are shipped to you, part of coffee. Well, let's look. We can do that real quick. I just got to make sure. The problem is, like, I have to make sure they go back in their exact package. Yeah. So I got a. It's not the first one. I did a video on one. I had Peters that came in. So this has got a different Damasteel pattern, but I got a Riyat Jack and Damasteel in for sharpening. This should be nothing, no problem to sharpen it. There is from time to time. I will tell you something that somebody said, and they're like, "Later, Tammy." And they told me, it was like, "Oh, you're talking about Damasteel and not having layers." And he's like, I sharpened one and the edge peeled. And let me explain what happened. So, yes, Damasteel is 2 different types of steel, and it is powdered, and I'm not wrong when I say that it's one congruous piece of steel. However, what happens is, when you etch this, you will from time to time have areas that get, and you can feel there's a difference in the edge. So it's not different layers you're seeing that happen at the edge where you'll be sharpening and then notice all of a sudden a section of the edge will peel off that matches the pattern. It's because of the etch. And so what you do is you just sharpen back until you get past that. And it usually is fine. I did every one of Elliot's cons, and there was a lot of those in Damasteel, and I had the same issue with, there was a couple of them in Damasteel, I mean, and the 2 that I did in Damasteel were, one was for Luke Albert and one was for our friend Bill. And both of them had an area where the edge peeled out a little bit, and it was 100% because of the etch. So there's that. Let's see. And then I'm just going to pull some of the stuff that showed up. Well, hang on a second. I'll get something else. So, my friend, the guy True, that you guys heard me talking to in a couple of videos, sent me this to sharpen, which has got a bit of a recurve to it. So this one's going to have its own period of time for sharpening. And so I'm going to do that one for him. And then he's got, oh, you guys got to see this. So he sent me his Archbishop, his Archie 2.0 with the through work. I believe it may be, but I'm not sure. It looks as though it's ground into that. It's a K-bar buoy, and I don't know if you know, a lot of buoys have got a little recurve. And they make it a pain in the ass to sharpen, but this one's not so pronounced. What I think that is, I think a lot of that is just kind of an optical illusion, because that's the spot that got used a lot. So it may have been that got touched up more. But if you look at it from the side, it looks fairly straight. But it's when you look at it like with the change in light, I don't think it's really recurved as much as it appears to be. And then, so True sent me this. So you saw the Archie 2.0, and then he sent me this Quiet Carry, which I don't like pocket clips on these. It's just, they're too tight, but they are they really plain and simple knife. This one's an Elmax. The Quiet Carries, they're not a bad knife. They're just, I don't think they're worth what they were charging. I think Quiet Carry did a Kickstarter. And I'm not saying they're bad knives. I just don't think that they're worth the premium. But here's the one. Now, I haven't talked to True to find out for sure. But this has got the most attractive set of scales I've ever seen on a Spyderco. I'm pretty sure that these are aftermarket. Let me turn the camera around so you can get a better look at it. Those are factory? Those are gorgeous. If that's factory, that's gorgeous. Then I'm not gonna lie, then that is the best looking Spyderco I've ever seen. How's my 940 holding up? Somebody asked. My 940 is great. I have had zero issues with my 940 since it came back from we'll go in the room. My wife's just spending her morning time that she has to watch a little bit of TV. Somebody asked me about doing, dude, you do a live feed like in the morning and this, and I was like, here's the thing. Like, I told somebody, I was like, here's the thing. Like, if you look at it in the big scope of things, every time I put one of these videos up, I get a little bit of money. And the more videos I have up and the longer I have videos up, that accumulates. So it's kind of self-serving. You want to see what me and Matt went and bought yesterday? So if you guys don't know, this is where my weed resides. Some of you guys will appreciate that. But let's go get my 940. Let's go get my 940 real quick. It's in my knife case in my bedroom. So the 940, squeeze it and work that, squeeze it and work it. Oh, it's hard to do on a 940. You can't really do it so much on a 940 because it's an access lock. So to break in, that's the palm of my hand. Sorry guys, plugging this in. To break in a 940, it's a little bit different. It's just a matter of just working the action, because the only thing that is, like, you can, so a lot of times you just want to break, it's not breaking in it's not the actual access lock that's causing you problems with that. What's actually causing God damn it. What's actually causing the problems are the actual pivot itself. You know what I mean? The actual pivot. And sometimes if you mess around with your pivot, stuff like that, it'll get gritty. When you refinish knives, so when I refinish a knife for a customer, you can tell this could use a lot. This needs cleaned up. So if I'm refinishing a folding knife for a customer, there's areas that I try real hard not to change the finish on, because I know it requires me to break in, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And those areas are, like if I had a flipper, which I don't because I left it out there, the lock interface. If you're finishing the lock, you want to take your lock bar insert out and try not to mess with it, because when you mess with the surface finish on parts of those knives, you can change the way they interact, and you get lock stick or you'll get lock rock and things like that. So there's some key important parts that I mask off. The one that I usually don't worry about unless somebody specifically says that they do not want it is the detent ball track that you see that breaks itself in, because it's really easy just to, like I said, squeeze your lock bar. And so it's easy to break that part in. Parts that you can't, once you've changed them dimensionally, lock bar interface, things like that, they get squirrely. And if you refinish a blade, a lot of times the interface between the actual pivot and the hole that the pivot rides in is fucking horrible. Like if you were watching this with no volume, you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? He's talking about fisting somebody all the way up to the watch band. So it's 100% that interface between the diameter of the hole in the blade, and then I just can't get away from doing it, and then the actual pivot surface finish. And sometimes you'll blast that blade, and you can't keep from getting a little bit of pitting on the inside of that diameter. And so when you put that knife back together, sometimes it feels stiff, and you'll work it and you can just feel it let go. When it finally smooths itself out, you're like, oh, one of the parts is softer than the other, and it'll wear together, and then you have your matched wear again. It's like putting a new part in a gun that you shot a lot. It's gonna feel different for a while until those parts get what's called, we always call them in the weapons world, matched wear. You always want to try and keep like machine gun barrels with the same machine gun because they have matched wear. Will they function? Yes. Will they function the way they did the last time if you don't keep those barrels with that specific weapon? Probably not. And so that's why you keep the barrels for a specific weapon in a bag together, separate of the receiver, with the serial number on it next to it in the rack, so that you can grab your 240 machine gun and a bag with 2 barrels that are for that gun. It's the same thing when you work on a knife, and it's like throwing a new part in. And so you have to get that match wear set up. And so if you guys, the thing that you guys don't see when you guys get a knife back from me after I've refinished it, there's probably a good 2 hours of me sitting in the living room with a handful of knives, or sitting in my bedroom with a bunch of knives in case, just watching TV doing this with an extra amount of lube and a paper towel, and I'm just watching YouTube videos doing this. Breaking your stuff back in, but not doing the full, because I'm not trying to, all I'm trying to do is just work that detent track back in and that pivot back in until it's smooth. And if you were to just sit there and flip it, what you can do is every time that knife slams into that stop pin, you're losing a little bit of life on that stop pin, and you're gonna start getting blade play and lock rock. And so that's why I was saying I like some of the thumb stud openers better, because there's less, like Sebenza and my 940 and my CTF, and even that ADV, they've got thumb studs that you can open it and you're not, flippers, there's a lot of force involved in a flipper. And some of that is, it's going to, as time goes on, start deforming your lock bar, or not your lock bar, yeah, your lock bar a little, and your stop pin, to the point where your interface is just worn, because basically all it is, you got your pivot here, you've got your lock bar here, and you got your stop pin back here, and it's basically these 2 points putting tension on the blade both directions to hold that blade straight and keep it from wobbling. And so if you are slamming that blade open and that lock bar comes up, so you're losing a little bit of material on your lock bar, and that you're slapping into that stop pin, you're losing a little bit of material. Now you've got deformation that allows that blade to kick like here, kick it here, kick here, kick here. And it goes both ways. And that's when you get that knife that does the maraca sound. You know what I'm talking about? Like you pick it up and you can hear it rattle when it's open. That's what causes that. And so when I'm breaking in a knife for a customer, I don't flip it. I mean, I'll do a test a couple times to see how the detent is, especially if I've refinished a knife where I've bent the lock bar out and straightened it, and then had to retension the lock bar, which you can only do so many times. So that's like one of the things I ask when somebody sends me a knife is, has this knife been refinished before? Have you messed with the lock bar? Because it's like bending a paper clip. You can only bend a paper clip so many times before it breaks. It's the same thing with titanium. That stress that you're inducing, that work hardening, it still does the same thing. Titanium's a lot springier, I'd say, but it's still, you run into some of those problems. So this is the last of the coffee. But if you're trying to break in a knife, like say you get a brand new knife, don't just sit there and flip it. That snap you hear, that's that knife slamming into the stop pin. Now, there's some knives that, like my Riet Horizon D, I don't know what he made the stop pin out of, but there's not even a mark on it. And that thing is still rock solid. And he must have made everything on that knife out of M390, because it has not worn at all. And so there's some knives you can get away with it, but like that's a $400 top of the line Chinese model that, like, if you bought it in the States, it'd cost you, if it was an American made product, would have bought you like fucking $1,000 at least. If at that time, that kind of quality, you'd have been looking at a $1,000 knife easy. Where do I put the oil? So when I'm just doing the break-in and I know I have to take it apart and clean it up again anyway, I'll just put a drop on either side right up here, and then a drop on the pivot, and then I'll work it for a while, and then I'll put another drop in, and I'll just wipe off any excess. And then when I'm done, I take the knife back apart and clean it up. And a lot of times I'll do that right after sharpening, and I'll tell you why. Some of that grit gets down in the pivot. It can actually help you. So you use the oil starts and lifts that grit out, but not before it's helped clean up that pivot ever so slightly. And then once it's all cleaned out, you'll feel it. Like you're like, oh, there it goes. And it's a dramatic change. Like it goes from, it feels stiff to it's, holy crap, it's smooth as hell all of a sudden. So this was fairly stiff when it first came back. And then, you know, I did black ceramic on this, but everybody that I talked to were all in agreement. It looks like I spray painted it, but it's more resilient than spray paint. But I just didn't like the green. I could send it back and get it re-anodized, I suppose, but why? It's just gonna get carried. And I have this one set up for left-hand carry so I can carry something right-handed as well, which I don't right now. But no, it's, breaking in a knife is, like a lot of people just sit there and flip it and break it, flip it. And I'm like, ah, geez, you've put thousands of hours of wear on your knife when you could easily just do it more slowly. That's why certain knives last so much longer than others. Especially if you're dealing with a knife that's a steel that's not M390. Like if you're dealing with a flipper in, let's say, a flipper knife that's made in VG10. So VG10 is a really good steel, but it's not got the impact resistance that you're gonna get out of something like M390 or 20CV 204P or S90V or S35BN even. So, and then so I did that video yesterday. You guys probably saw it. It was the Warney versus Sheep's Foot, and somebody was like, I had said, you know, basically they're different designs, but they all get you to the same end result, which was, I was talking about a back edge that's not quite as piercing, or a point that's not quite as piercing as, say, like a drop point, and then a nice flat edge. And somebody was like, well, if you think they're all the same, then you're mistaken, and you were talking about this. I was like, I get it. Sheep's foot was more of a nautical thing because it didn't have near as piercing a tip. But the fact was, they all were great because, as opposed to this where it sweeps up and then you sharpen it and it starts screwing up the tip, on those with them coming down and then the edge being really straight, as you sharpen it, it just basically walks up and you don't lose your nice, what's up, Chris? You don't lose your nice crisp line and good tip like you will on something like this over consecutive sharpenings. It's much easier to maintain a knife like that where it's just gonna wear up. It's basically, it'll start to wear at this angle as you sharpen. You just can't help but do it because all the work you're gonna be doing is pretty tip forward. And so no matter how hard you try not to walk that angle back, so you're gonna wind up those knives will maintain their, how am I gonna say it, their usability longer. And that's part of the purpose. Gotta take a shower, huh? Yeah. So she has to be at work at 9. So it's 8:15. So, but yeah, it's just one of those things because like from the point, I'll go get it. Hang on, let's go. I'll go get it. Anyway, I went on a rant and I forgot that we were going to look at other stuff that came in. But like I was saying, so as you sharpen, there's no way to avoid it because you're never going to be able to get as much material off at the base as you're taking off the tip. So the angle's just basically gonna go, instead of staying perfectly straight like that, it's just gonna kinda walk its way up at an angle from that point, and it'll still be straight, but your blade will start to cant that way. But you don't lose as much tip because it's a nice straight, if that makes sense. But I had something come in that's gonna get its own video. It didn't come in for sharpening. It came in from, I can't think of the guy's Instagram handle, but he's a Marine up at 29 Palms. And he asked me if I had gotten to see an 80-15. Now, I do know that Nick Shabazz ranted about this with the Scorpion Lock. Loved this knife. I'm not, I don't hate it. Don't hate it. I love the blade design, and it came, this thing came ridiculous sharp. A lot of Cold Steels really come ridiculous sharp, and this one is ground pretty well. It's better than any Spydercos I've had come in lately. But it's got the Scorpion Lock, and I'm gonna do a whole video about it, and the Scorpion Lock poses some issues. It is a cool design. It's a back lock without a button, so you have to lift up on that. It's got a pivot and a spring. But it poses some issues when you're doing deployment. Because if you don't get a hold of it just right, if you hold it too tight, it doesn't want to deploy because you're putting pressure. It has to open up a little bit. So we're gonna talk about that one in a video, but overall, I really like this. I really, really like the 80-15. And it's an S35VN, and Cold Steel's S35VN is great. They really, really do it. Cold Steel's heat treat on their materials is always, always good. So that came in, and then, of course, you guys know Matt has me do all kinds of stuff for him, but so I've got some knives of Matt's that are here. So this is a Archbishop 2.0 that he had Chris and Elliot just go nuts with. So, because it lent itself to be very carved and everything like that. So I don't know if you guys know this, you can pay Elliot to Maker's Choice you a knife. It's an upcharge. I think it's on their website. It's like $300 or so to get a Fortis. No, this isn't. Is this a Fortis? Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. This is a Fortis 2.0. Yeah. At any rate, is this? Yes, this is a Fortis 2.0. I'm sorry. Yeah, and so Elliot did all the hand carving, and you can't see, like, the ano and everything that's on it is sick. Let me see if I can get it to show up on video. But you've got purples and bronze and just hints of that slimy alien. So yeah, it's pretty sick. And like I said, Elliot hand engraves all this, hand carves it. So that's all done with a Dremel, and then like the machining lines that you'll see some of them to stay, but they do a really good job of, then they texture everything and clean it up so it doesn't look like it's carved. There's a lot of work that goes into just the finish prep on these. And these are the guys that taught me how to do ano. So we got that, that's his. He was supposed to bring me a lever lock for my ongoing thing of weird deployment. But the other thing that's here for sharpening for Matthew is a Mammoth Tusk handled fixed blade Graham Razel fixed blade that I sold him from another customer. And it was so nice and sharp when we got it in, and Matt just fell in love with it. And so I was selling a couple knives for a guy, and Matt found this one and fell in love. He's like, I need a gentleman's fixed blade. Something I can just, like, I can carry it in a suit and it doesn't look out of place. And I was like, you know, you're not too far gone with this one. So really, really nice. And like I said, it's Mammoth Tusk. And it is a nice little knife. It's just too small for my liking, but it is attractive. That's the only thing that kept me from buying it, because at the time I still had enough money to buy stuff. So that came in from Matt. But that's pretty much all the stuff that's all the stuff that's in. I got a bunch of stuff that is in but hasn't been opened yet. So that stuff that you saw, and then I've got 3 of Yakov's knives here. So, but guys, you want to see something fucking ridiculous? My daughter is drawing on her math homework, which that's not good. But my daughter, check this out. Functions and graphs. My daughter's 11 years old. She's in 6th grade. She's doing XY coordinates. She's not completely done with this homework yet today. But she's... But we pay for this. This is an after-school program. She goes once a week. Right? I mean, 6th grade, I think we were still doing basic multiplication tables in 6th grade when I was a kid. As a matter of fact, I think we didn't... You got to remember, too, this was... Fuck, this was 30-something years ago. Yeah, 30-something years ago. 34 years ago that I was her age. And we didn't learn stuff like that. And she loves it. She loves math. And I think it's because we put her in Kumon and showed her, and I keep telling her, I was like, okay, here's the thing. Math is the language that everything is built on. I'm horrible at math. I wish I could do better at math because I really love chemistry. But being dyslexic made it very, very hard. And so, yeah, I did really well in chemistry in high school, but the fact was I knew that there wasn't going to be a lot of high-level math for me in my future. They made me take the NUC exam when I first joined the Navy, and I passed it, but I knew that I was not. It's so painful to do math sometimes. My brain doesn't want to do it. It's not that I don't want to. It's not I'm being lazy. My brain just does not want to work with me on that, which is funny because one of the things I was best at was solid-state electronics. There's a lot of math in solid-state electronics. You got to know what voltage things get forward and reverse biased by, and you got to find the voltage drop across the fucking run and things like that. And I was okay with that because it was the way it was applied, but to just do math for the sake of math, I would have never been, I don't think I would have ever been able to be like a science major where I would have to take specific math classes. It's just something I'm fucking horrible at it. It's just, and it's not that I was like, oh, it just takes practice. And then you'd have people like, no, he's got dyslexia. It takes more than practice. And it just was something that just would make me physically nauseous to have to try and keep up with the math that I needed for chemistry. Like to do geometry, trigonometry, and algebra 2 to be able to do chemistry 2. It almost killed me. I was physically sick, and I was working at the time too. Fucking horrible. So I can make my brain do certain things if there's an application that makes it make sense, but like just to sit down and just do math, it ain't happening, guys. But hey, guys, I got to get off of here. I got to start getting stuff ready. I got to take the dog up to the vet here a little bit later. And then when I get back, I'm going to be doing a bunch of sharpening when I get home this afternoon. So I got a lot done yesterday. You guys, there was a lot off film. I'm pretty much, even if like it's been one of those weeks where there wasn't a lot of work got done, I pretty much caught up on it because I worked pretty hard yesterday. But like I said, if I do have something here of you guys's and I'm a little bit behind, just reach out to me and find out what the status is. I've got some shit that's ready for shipping that's gonna go out tomorrow. And then I get to hold with Dwayne Smotherman and find out if he's ready for me to start on his stuff because he had a financial issue. And so he had not paid me yet because he just was like, I'll send you the stuff and then you give me the estimate. And so that stuff's set aside. I can work with him on that because we've been talking about this stuff that's coming for a long time. Plus he sent me a lot of stuff for the channel. You guys already saw some of it. So, but hammer sharpness has got some nicks and chips in it. But yeah, I gotta start getting changed, and I have to take a shower as well because I took a shower yesterday morning and then I didn't take a shower before I went to bed because I'd already had a shower, but I want to take a shower before I start heading anywhere today. I just feel better about it if I go take a shower before I go anywhere. So anybody got any last coffee talk questions? That's what we should start calling this, coffee talk. Wasn't that a Saturday Night Live skit for a while? Coffee talk? I don't remember. Let's see, I'll give it a couple minutes. I haven't seen anybody say anything for a while. Cheers. Again, coffee corner. Give you guys a couple minutes. Back, Tammy's back. Is there a steel I want to sharpen but I haven't yet? No, I don't think so. S125V with Elliot's heat treat was the last one, and I'm not gonna lie to you, that is really, really difficult to get an edge on. I'm still not happy with the edge on Matt's Sea Snake because it's so hard to get it to cut into what I think I need to just take it and just spend a lot of time on a really coarse stone and just set a really good apex and then work back. Why are serrations on the wrong left side? Let me see. I can tell you, because of the way you're gonna hold it, usually it's all done standard, and it's a lot easier to get this against the base. Well, I guess you could do it either way. I really don't know. I mean, there's serration. I've seen the wheels that you use for doing serrations. The guy at PVK Knives sent me a picture, asked me if I wanted to borrow a diamond serration wheel because he's got a guy that wants a knife serrated. And I told him, I was like, that's not a project I'm willing to take on. But no, I really don't know why they're all on the same side. If you're right-handed, they're just where you want them, though. I don't think so. There aren't very many knives in SM100, so there's not like, the only one I know of that there's like a lot of is Elliot's SM100 Stenger, and there was 100 of those, and so that's not a lot. He's made more knives, I think, than pretty much anybody. The only other person I know that does any of them in any like amounts is Dwayne Dwyer. Does some in SM100, and there's, I think Mick Strider did a couple, but like, you know, at this point, I don't know, like you can't even get SM100 right now. There's not any available. So I doubt it. I honestly doubt that that's going to become a thing where it's going to be more widely available because 1, cost, 2, difficulty to use, 3, difficulty in heat treat. And then 4, like if you're trying to make flippers, they don't want to flip. SM100 wants to gall up on anything that's going to be a rolling surface. It's going to want to catch and bind, and it really gums up against stuff. So like unless you're talking like a fixed blade, I don't foresee a lot of companies doing anything in SM100 unless it's fixed blade. God, this thing is sharp. Mystic Walk, good morning from Portugal. Let me ask you a question. To make SM100, that's why it's, well, not just, it's the cost of the material too, because when you look at the cost of SM100, it is almost the same as silver per ounce. So, I mean, it's ridiculously expensive for a knife material, and that's one of the big ones. Elliot was saying, though, I think he was saying that there's other people that are starting to branch out and starting to make some of the SM100 style titanium nickel alloys for use in certain things, but not necessarily for knives. Yeah, it's the cost to make it. So, I don't know, but here's the thing. SM100 was never meant to be a knife steel. Neither was Bowler M390 or LMAX. Those were for a lot of the knife steels that we wind up using that work really well because they're wear resistant were designed for plastic cutting, because I've said it before, cutting plastics is probably one of the fucking hardest things to do. Like, cutting plastics will dull your knife really quick, followed real quickly by paper and cardboard. And after that is hair. Like, straight razors, like, you've got to keep those touched up. It's one of the hardest things, and that's why straight razors typically have a much lower, to get the heat treat right, like to get it right and not fuck it up, you can have a problem with heat treat. Heat treat period is a pain in the ass. Heat treat will take you an entire day to do 5 knives in heat treat, like a full 8-hour day. Which is better to do 5, because if you only do 1, it's still going to take you an 8-hour day, because it has nothing to do with the amount of work. It's just that's how long it takes. So you figure you got like 3 hours to get to critical. So you put everything in the oven, you turn it on, you get it to 2200 degrees. It takes at least 2 hours, at least 2 or 3 hours. And then you pull everything out, let it and quench it, and pull it out of packets and get it to room temperature. And then you put it in the annealing oven for 2 hours. And so there you're already at 4 hours. And then you pull it out, and then you gotta let it, you know, after those 2 hours, you gotta let it sit till it normalizes and gets to temperature. And then you put it back in the oven for another 2-hour cycle, but then, you know, temperature's dropped, so you've got to get the temperature back up to 1,000. And you had to get it up to 1,000 in the first place, so it takes about 8 hours. There's a lot of time involved in heat treat. So it's one of those things, like, that's one of those hidden costs of making a custom knife that people are like, well, I don't understand why, you know, why you're charging me $400, you're not that well of a known of a knife maker. And I was like, it's just, it doesn't matter. Like, the value of the time is still the value of the time, and I'm not even close to valuing my time at what it should be. I just can't. No one will be able to afford to do anything. So like I honestly, if you want to know the truth, I should raise the price of my sharpening, but I'm not going to. I'll just account for it by volume and just work longer. But the fact is, like, there's knives that come in that I don't upcharge anybody, even if they're fucked up, because I always feel bad when I do a quote and the knife comes in and I have to tell them it's gonna be like 20 bucks more. And they're like, but you said, and I was like, I know I said, that's an estimate. Like, you sent me this knife and it looks like you've been cutting rocks with it. So you have to deal with each customer differently. So it makes it challenging. But in all honesty, like, it's not just the time. Like, I am wearing out materials. I'm wearing out my equipment every knife I sharpen. So I don't know, but that's why. Yes, we have done pizza in a heat treat oven. Yeah, you can do it. I mean, they're great ovens. Then they hold a good constant temperature, so you can get it. It's just you don't want to make sure you don't want to touch any of the fucking heat treat. I watched Christopher warmed up lasagna in the heat treat oven here a few months ago. I watched him doing it, and I was like, what the fuck? The fuck are you doing? He's like, I got an oven. That's an awful expensive oven to be risking fucking up by cooking something in it. Especially considering there's a microwave. And a lot of times Dr. Vince's smoker is there. So I jammed a piece of metal down along the quick, and I split the nail, and there's that hard piece of nail where it peeled it over, and it's real sore, and I want to get that piece of nail because it catches on everything. It's just sticking up there. And so it just, well, thank you, sir. What's DKK? What's DKK? And it didn't, I can't see. I'm trying to get the comments back up. Let me see live chat. So I see it here, but what is DKK, Simon? Is that even what I think it is? Huh. Well, that was a super chat from Simon, and it was 17, DKK 17. I don't know what that is. And it's not showing up on the top, so I don't know what that was. But at any rate, so that's what I was wondering. Hey, psst, come here. No, I meant for you to stay where you were at and just come up on my shoulder. You see Mama? Go get her. Go get Mama. Go get her. Go. Go get her. Go get her. She's getting ready to go to work. From Denmark. Okay. Well, I don't know. I didn't know, but it didn't pop up at the top. That's why I was confused. So usually it shows. But appreciate that. So I like doing these live feeds. This is fun. It starts my day off, and then she's gonna go. I'm gonna start getting stuff ready so that when I come back from the doctor's, I'm basically just ready to go. And I only have 4 knives to sharpen today. One of them is a great big one. And then I'm gonna get started on Dwayne's stuff as soon as I talk to him and find out if he's ready for me to finish this stuff, because I've got some refinishing to do. I'm going to the forge tomorrow to finish up some stuff. Let me see here. So about that video, you talked about the quality of cold steel and the grinding edge is not right. You said that it tends to roll during use. It would be better to let it be as it comes, or will that be sharpening a different angle on each side? Proud to roll because egg grown. Okay, so keep having to jump back and forth from calls. Okay, so when I was talking about cold steel's edges, okay, so if you have a good aligned edge, it's gonna cut through material like a wedge, like it's supposed to. If you have an edge that's canted over at the edge, but the blade is still straight, so you see how my arms are straight, but the edge is like this? When you put it in, it's immediately going to hit that material and start to roll more so in the direction of the incorrect angle. And it's just gonna cause it to roll and peel off because it's not a good aligned edge that's going to go through the material straight. It's gonna try and go through the material straight, but it's curved, and you're holding the blade straight, but the edge is not straight, so it wants to peel over. It's just gonna do it. And so if it's really incorrect, yeah, you can use it for a while. Like most knives, I don't just immediately throw on a stone when I get them. I think I carried this with the factory edge for a couple weeks, before I noticed it was starting to get the chipping and stuff like that. And so once I realized that the edge was starting to roll over, because this was kind of misground. This was one of the better Benchmades I've seen recently. But so it was, it's just a matter of personal preference. I just think that the edge would last longer for the customer if they were ground right. I mean, you're not going to see scalpels coming out of the QA scalpel blades, and they're cheaper. Scalpel blades aren't that expensive. Scalpel blades have to meet a certain criteria, and because they're used in a medical setting. So there it is. It popped up there. So 17 Dutch krones, or whatever the fuck it is $2.50 American. Okay. I'm always curious about conversion rates. I spent a lot of time going country to country when I was in the Navy, and you always see conversion rates, Danish. So, all right, guys, it's been an hour. My mom just texted me. Apparently, she found some pictures of my dad that she found in a notebook from out at the lake, where they used to keep a camper, a fifth wheel, and they spent their summers. And she found a notebook. They had to sell that. And my mother just couldn't maintain that, and there's no way for her to get back and forth. So it was kind of sad. She had to sell my dad's boat. She didn't have to. It was just stuff that was like, why would I pay tax on registration for a boat that she's never going to use? Sold my dad's old bass boat, and it was a nice boat. It had a Nitro Express, fucking all aluminum decks, everything. Great big 250 horsepower Mercury on the back, the big black anchor. And so she sold that. She sold the camp. She had to, my dad had bought her a golf cart for out at the lake to get around at the campgrounds area. And she sold that because she didn't need it on the farm. So it was that was a trying time. You know, it was stuff that we've had, things that we've done since I was a kid that just kind of went away when my dad passed away. So, all right, guys, got to get off here, talk to my mother. I will, Yakov, if you're still here, I might give you a call here in a few minutes while I'm getting stuff ready to go. So you guys have a good day. Like I said, I'll continue to try and do this. It's 8:42. This is about what time I usually actually go out and start sharpening. So I'm probably going to do a couple knives, but I have to leave here at 11-ish. So, but it's been one of those weird weeks where I just had all kinds of stuff that was just going on where I still got my work done, but I was so busy all week. So